20 years of the Tales series. I can hardly believe it. I've only been a fan for 10 of those 20 years, but I feel like I'm part of something really big, and it's one of my favorite video game series of all time, and I'm glad that I've had a chance to kind of share my love for it and make somewhat of a mark. But as you saw on my other channel, if you're subscribed to it, the Misaho BBS channel, I put a video on there for a little community project called Your Tales History, where we just like make videos and talk about our history with the Tales series. And I probably should keep my promise. So this is mine. I guess I should probably introduce myself as well. Hi, I'm Flamzeron, aka YouTube Tasuke, but I also go by Ryan Burton, particularly on the Misaho BBS as well as in real life, because that's my real name, which is important here. So for this video, just identify me as Ryan. That's my true identity here. And I'm not a big video editor. I don't even know who to say, but you know who I'm talking about. All those big YouTubers who make like the big, really high budget videos. I'm not one of those kind of people, so my video may not really be that impressive, but I do hope you'll watch it. I don't know how long it's going to be in the long run because I'm recording these in sections, and I'm also going unscripted, so I'm going to tell you guys that kind of stuff, and not, even though I probably shouldn't. But I figured I should just kind of tell you guys my story of my history with the Tales series. That's basically all this is, and so I guess why don't we start at the beginning? It all started with a little game called Tales of Symphonia for the Nintendo GameCube. I remember playing this game way back in the day. One of the things I really like about it is the little feature it has on the synopsis where it'll say the date of the specific point in the game that when you reached it. And that's really handy when you want to make these kind of videos. I think for me it was August 13th, 2004 or something. I'm probably right. Or if I'm not, I probably am. I don't know. But it really makes me think about, the past and kind of how I got into the whole series in the first place. And for me, it really started with an ad for the game, I think in like Nintendo Power or some magazine. It was the 2-page one. You've probably seen it before. In fact, the image that you're seeing here is a image that I took from some eBay listing. Yep, someone's actually trying to sell the ad. I won't lie, I'm not in. I was a tad interested, maybe. Of course, I probably have the ad somewhere, so I'd be wasting money, but it's a really nice looking ad, and since it's a 2-pager, it really catches your attention because you have no choice but to look at it. It's not one of those 1-pagers where you just skip it, and for some reason, Namco started doing those more, especially with like Legendia and Abyss and whatnot, and with those, I only ever saw the ads for Abyss, really, and Shonen Jump, which is super niche. Like, at least Nintendo Power has a bigger market, because, Nintendo. But one of the things that really kind of caught my eye about this was the third little blurb that they say underneath the little big title thing. It says, fully customizable character growth system where the player can create the kind of character they want to fight with. And if you look at one of the screenshots in the ad, you'll see Lloyd dressed in his pirate costume, Sheena in her Suzu cosplay outfit or whatever, Rain in her mistress sacrifice thing, and Genus in what looks like his formal outfit. So the game really gives you the illusion of being able to make your own character. Now, the reason why this is important is because I had been playing Champions of Narath on my PS2, so I was kind of getting into the whole character creation thing, and my thought process was, oh, an anime video game that lets me make my own anime character? Sweet! Though it's kind of funny because I've looked at this ad several times. In fact, I think the first time I saw it, where it really caught my attention was my best friend Nick and I. We were looking at, magazines, trying to find inspirations. We like to do role playing a little bit. Like we're both writers, and so we had like little stories that we would make up and we would act them out. And we often played video games, watch anime, and look at magazines for inspiration. And Symphonia was one that caught my eye. I remember in particularly, I kept trying to tell him that Zelos over there looked like a girl. And he was like, no, it's a guy. And I really liked Kratos, but he looked like a villain, which I guess was a bit of foreshadowing, if you can even call that foreshadowing, in the giant story of life. But it wasn't until that August, I think I saw this ad in like maybe May or June, and I didn't even think about the game until I kept seeing it, and I'm just like, oh, that looks cool. And I had a GameCube, so I could play it. And then finally, I think it was like maybe a Friday or something, one day, like after school, went to Blockbuster. I started the 6th grade, and of course you all know how that is, 6th grade. And I found this game, Tales Symphonia. I'm like, oh, I remember that. I should rent it. And of course, I knew it was an RPG, so I was a little skeptical. Let me explain for a little bit. Most JRPGs generally fall under 2 categories, I find. They either have the turn-based battle system where, you know, there are random battles and you walk around and stuff, but you don't actually, like, do, like, a lot of action fighting game. Like, you're not playing God of War or anything. You take your turns and you can do your special attacks and whatnot. And there's definitely a market for those games, and I find them okay, but overall, they're not really my thing. The other side is the ones that I'm more interested in, where they're still the random battles, but you go around, it's like really action-oriented, and some games are just straight-up action to where you could almost say they're an action game with RPG elements. It almost kind of makes you seem like it's not a real RPG at all in some aspects. I know the clip I'm showing here is Kingdom Hearts 2, but, you know, you get what I mean. They generally fall under 2 categories. For the sake of this story, we'll say they fall under 2 categories, either turn-based or action-oriented. But Tales is different. The Symphonia was different, and I was a tad worried, and I was blown away when I got into my first battle. Like a typical JRPG, Tales Symphonia has towns, it has the world map, it has quests you can do, and it's got random battles, but it plays like an action game. And it's not even like Kingdom Hearts where you just run up to an enemy and they just appear. It's more like it's technically random battles, but it's like you don't really like transition into a new thing. There's no like little or anything that kind of comes up. With Symphonia and the Tales series, they do the little transition thing, and you do go to a different place, and it kind of looks like it could be seen as like a turn-based RPG, but it plays like an action game. In fact, one of the things that I constantly see at like Tales history things is that it's an RPG that plays like a fighting game. Remember, this series is made by Namco. They weren't necessarily known for making RPGs, at least at the time when they first started working on the first game, Fantasia. They were known for their Soul Calibur and their Tekkens. This is a little different. And I think that's what really attracted me to the series, just this blend, this beautiful blend of traditional JRPG tropes, and I guess if you think about it, battle system, but it plays more like an action game. It's this perfect marriage of, you know, genres, and that's really what I want. Like, I'm the kind of person to where, you know, I like things that are different, but I also want to feel like I'm actually still part of that group. I don't want to feel like I'm being like handicapped or catered to. Like, I want to feel like I'm still like part of the group and I'm just doing things a tad differently. With Tales Symphonia and the Tales series, as I continue to play them, I found that, you know, it was exactly what I wanted. And I think that's the reason why I love the Tales series so much. And I'll say this probably 15 million times, but it was like the perfect JRPG for me. And so after I played it, I had to play the others. And so with that said, I hunted down information on the Tales series, or rather, it didn't really start off that way, but I definitely was craving more, and I was able to get that with a Tales group that I found. You might know it as the Skit-Style BBS, or Misaho as we often call it, or Misaho BBS. We have like a million names for it. But I found this group, this Tales of Symphonia fan site with a bunch of cool different stuff, like, you know, different guides, news on the latest Symphonia stuff, as well as a message board, which is the main thing here. I first found Misaho through a character quiz. I was in like a mood for what character from X series are you, and I found one for Tales Symphonia, which led to Misaho, and I started going here like, oh, this is really cool. And I first started off using the guide for like different stuff, but I got stuck and I decided to go to the BBS. I didn't even know what a message board was, and that was actually my first message board too. So I started going, I went there and I asked for help on the gravity rooms, and I think Panban Richard, who you might recognize in the Tales community, I think he was the one that I first saw there. Or someone else. It was someone with a zealous avatar, I know that much. And I used, I think, Lloyd at the time. until I finally switched to Kratos, my favorite character. But whoever it was helped me, and I started coming back just to talk, and it was really cool. And I really got to know people. It was my first real internet community. I know there are plenty of people who have those, but this was like the first one, for me at least. With it being the 20th anniversary of the Tales series, it's also the 10th anniversary of Symphonia, as well as the 10th of Misaho. So, I already talked about that, but I'm going to talk about it in more detail, sort of. I started going to the BBS a lot more, and it actually was a bit popular back in the day. Heck, if you go back to the Symphonia website, the old one for the GameCube, you'll see a listing of Misaho. The old website is still there. It's right fucking there. Now, granted, it doesn't work anymore because it closed down, but you can still see it, and if you have Wayback Machine, you can actually see some old posts, including some of mine where I threatened to post porn because we had a spammer. But that's a story for another day. But as you know, the BBS did kind of die out, and then another one came back, and then now we've got the new one done by Panban Richard. And I gave him the code he asked for because I had the code, and he fixed it all up and made it super nice. And it's still going to this day. Still, I find it very interesting how we have this community that's been around for 10 years. There's been a lot of drama, too. A friend and I have talked about, past memories, and I feel like, a lot of us were teenagers. There weren't too many who were, like, past 16. And heck, I came on there when I was 12, so I was getting started with all the horniness. I feel like there was a lot of, childish drama, and the group started to kind of split up. There was the official chat room that was made a while ago, then I think White Wishes or Starry Heavens, which is another chat room, came around, and that's where another group kind of went to. And then it became Judgment, which is still going on to this day, but like the BBS, there aren't too many people on there. And then, of course, there's the podcast that I started, with my buddies Stan and Rio. But, so we've got ourselves a nice little blend of groups, and it's nice that we've all kind of grown with each other, and some of us have met in real life. I know Richard has met several people, and Nick and Stan met each other as well, and I hope to meet more of the BBSers. I was even able to get AJ and Nick on it. Nick and I don't really do our LARPing anymore, but he is a member of the BBS as well as AJ, and so I was able to kind of bring the BBS into my life a little bit more, and I feel like it really helped me through some dark times. So if any of you Misaho people are watching this, thank you. Thank you very much for helping me get through the trials and the bullshit of middle school. High school, I was more or less okay with. I know the people of Penny Arcade didn't really like it that much. I was personally okay with it, but middle school was definitely my dark ages. What you'll probably see here is some B-roll of the BBS, but this is actually the second one, because as you'll see, there's more than just Symphonia, but it still looks like the old one. If the new one has a nicer look to it, but, the BBS, I felt like that was an early part of my exposure to the Tales series, but it wasn't the last. Oh, no, I wasn't done yet. I wanted to play all the Tales games, regardless of the language. I got to the point in Tales of Symphonia where Kratos Leaves Your Party had this little mini fun thing with it. It was the Christmas of that 2004 year, and I rented the game Symphonia for the Christmas break, and it was kind of funny because I already knew that I was going to get it for Christmas as well, so it was almost like getting to play it early. But me and AJ and Nick, we played through it, or as far as we could, and got to the part where Kratos leaves the party. And I really liked Kratos, and I got really sad, and I kept trying to find ways to, legitimately get him into your party without Game Shark. And I was looking through old magazines, and I saw in a little preview for Symphonia back before 2004, they kept talking about, Tales of Destiny. And I'm like, what? There's more? At the time I didn't know that there were more Tales games. So knowing that there were more besides Symphonia, I'm just like, what? And so I started looking up images of the Tales series, and I found the website Tales Central, which was the biggest help out of everything, because it had updated info about the Tales series. It had a bunch of pictures I could look at and a few videos I could download to watch. It was really, really something. I was able to get a lot of information, learn about the Tales games that, for the most part, hadn't come out in English. And there was even a little title guide to explain, what games had come out, what games hadn't. So I did my research on there. But before I did anything else, the first game after Symphonia that I played was Tales of the World Narikiri Dungeon 3 on the Game Boy Advance, and it was also my first emulated game. I was aware of emulation from another friend of mine who liked to emulate SNES games and a few imported games of the Super Famicom as well. So I knew about emulation, but I didn't really understand it until now, where I actually played the entire game really in Japanese, and it wasn't until later that I decided that I wanted it in English. But it was kind of cool getting to see all the Tales characters be together, and this was the one that had Symphonia in it, so I was able to kind of find some connection with it. But getting to see all these other Tales characters kind of helped get me into the mood for the Tales series, and I really had a thing for Kyle. I thought he was really fun to play as. And, of course, Kratos and Leon and Reed was like my main team, because I already knew that Leon and Reed were going to be my favorites from Eternia and Destiny, which isn't false in the slightest. So I played Narikiri Dungeon 3, and this was before I had my own computer, so I would take up like hours playing this one game. And I still play it occasionally. I mean, of course, I own the game now, but, I still sometimes play my emulated version. I kind of like playing my emulated version because I like having my file. That's one of the things with buying games used, especially games that you can't transfer save data. You're kind of stuck unless you want to get into the actual part of making ROMs. But after I played Narikiri Dungeon 3, I decided that the next game I wanted to get was Tales of Eternia, and that's where everything kind of changed. Tales of Eternia, my favorite Tales game, like wow. Even back then, I knew it was something special. I think the similar plot to Symphonia, but the different writing style, the less religious tones, the more down-to-earth dialogue and everything, I feel, as well as the side-scrolling view with the battle system and everything, I feel like all that stuff made me really enjoy the game. It really felt like something special. And for the longest time, I couldn't describe why I liked it so much until I watched the anime. I just think it's just, I don't know. To this day, I think just the story and the characters and just how bright all the characters look and just the colors and everything about it, I just think is really, really good. That's why I really want to remake really badly, because I kind of want to test myself. I want to see if I really like it as much as I think I do. But yeah, Eternia, man, that summer, wow. All bets were off. I played that every day, showed all my friends. AJ played as Keel, even played it with a DDR pad at one point. And even like the first night when it finally came in the mail, I actually, no joke, set it on my shelf in a position to where when I wake up, I would see it. No joke. I wanted to look at it. Even the game, the PS1 case looks really nice. I also have the PSP version as well, which remains to be one of my most played PSP games of all time. So I really love Tales of Eternia, and I've supported it from nearly every region except for Japan. But you do that remake, Namco, and I'll do it. Then after that, I got Tales of Destiny, and, that was all good. I had, the Tales games that came out in English, and of course I kept up with Legendia and Abyss. But then I got to a point to where I was ready to tackle the Japanese games, and I'll talk about this at some point, hint, hint, but I was already kind of familiar with importing games with Dragon Ball Z. I had Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22 and Dragon Ball Final Bout, and so I was aware of importing games, and I knew kind of that you can't just buy the game and expect it to work on your system. You kind of have to do a little bit more work. And so I decided to figure out how I could play imported games on my PS2. I didn't want to mod it. I heard about Swap Magic, and then I heard about the slide card thing, pulling off the front of the disc tray, and you can put it back on for those of you who are skeptical. And actually, I think you could probably still do it even with it on. You kind of just have to have a really thin thing. I might actually try that. I'll have to try that and see if it'll fit. I'm I might actually try that after I record this. But yeah, so I bought those, got Swap Magic, I got a slide card, and I got Destiny 2. And AJ was there for that as well. AJ's like my Tails buddy. And played that, and that was my first exposure to the Japanese side of the Tails games. And from there, Rebirth and going forward, you've seen the collection before. In fact, here's the earliest picture of my collection that I took. It wasn't anything to really kind of look at, but I mean, of course I did have some of the imported games and Fandom Volume 1, which I feel like most fans don't necessarily have. But as you can see, it grew really much, and I've even had the chance to expand on it a little bit. I recently got Rave Unitia for the 3DS, and as you can see, Heartsar, Symphonia Chronicles, and Exilia 2. So I have been buying the Tales games for a very long time, and I am pretty close to owning the entire series. I'm trying to get all the Tales games. If a remake comes out for it that I don't already have the game of, like Narikiri Dungeon Cross, I will get that as opposed to the original. But if I have the original and the remake expands a lot more, even if it's in a different language, like the Destiny remake, I will get it as well. And I try to get every single English version as well. But needless to say, I fell in love with the Tales series, and I freaking played it all the time. Even like late middle school, 7th and 8th grade, really 8th grade, literally my day would be school, come home, play Tales games, eat dinner, do homework, play more Tales games. That was literally my life. It was the friggin' tits. My favorite Tales character of all time is definitely Reed. That red hair and that sword and that bra, he's awesome. Though I also like Ash from Tales of the Abyss. I really kind of feel like I sympathize with his plot and his backstory, and I can really tell that he sees weaknesses himself through Luke, and I don't know. For me, if I can find something in a series that relates to something I've written in one of my stories, I really like it, and I feel like Ash is very similar to one of my characters, even if this particular character is a reverse. But I also really like Judas, because I feel like he represents, one of the core themes with the Tales series, and that being like change and trying to better yourself, because Leon in Destiny was a bit of a douchebag, and he was really mean to Ston in particular, and he betrayed them in the end, spoilers. But here with Judas, he's trying to make up for it by being a mentor to Kyle and helping Kyle with his mission. And I feel like that makes Judas a very strong character, because it shows growth, change, and maturity. Now let's get to the big part. I promised that I would talk about this in a future video, so I'm going to talk about it now. I was playing Tales of Rebirth. I had finished every other Tales game up to it on the PS2. I had finished the Destiny remake and Destiny 2 and Abyss and whatnot, and I was working on Rebirth. I was near the end of the game, like roughly I was before the whole thing with Claire and the peach pie and the execution and the Agarte, that particular anime scene. Spoilers. But I don't remember what happened. I think I either left my PS2 on during a thunderstorm or I was playing it during a thunderstorm. Basically, it cut off and my save was corrupted. Here's a screenshot of what it looked like at the time. I literally took a screenshot of this because I was asking around for help. And people saying, oh yeah, it's corrupted. I'm like, damn it. And I tried to salvage it, which ended up corrupting the entire memory card. So yeah, I had a whole lot of nothing. I lost an entire memory card's worth of data. And I was pretty sad because I didn't just have Tales on there. I also had other stuff as well. And so I kind of took a little bit of a break from Tales a little bit. I would only play like the new games that would come out. I took the time to finish Radiant Mythology, I think, and I also got the English version. But I kind of focused on other stuff, and this actually I feel like was a good thing because, I started getting into other stuff. I rediscovered Mortal Kombat, which is one of my earliest favorite martial arts series, and what a perfect time to do it too, because at the time Armageddon had just came out, and this was supposed to be the last Mortal Kombat game before the new timeline started, and back then we didn't know there was going to be a new Mortal Kombat timeline, so as far as I knew, this was the last Mortal Kombat game. I also got into the Angry Video Game Nerd, and I feel like his general presentation style I take a lot in myself, as well as my inspiration for wanting to do more videos like this. And of course, and I think technically I got into the Elder Scrolls a little bit more. Nick had Morrowind, and I got Oblivion, and I really got into it there. So basically, I feel like this experience kind of helped me a lot to kind of help me, discover other stuff. And I know this is a Tales video, so I probably shouldn't talk too much about other series, but, I feel like the Tales series indirectly helped me discover other series. I even got into voice acting a little bit more. I'm kind of done now, but, it kind of helped me get more interested in different things, and I was a little obsessed. And so it was good. I was able to kind of see different things, and, this was probably where Star Ocean kind of came into play a little bit as well, which many people consider to be a sister series to the Tales series. What I'm saying is I got into Star Ocean around this time, I'm sure. Or I at least played one of the games. I kind of feel sorry for Star Ocean because the whole story with the Tales series was that Yoshiharu Gotanda, the creator of the Star Ocean series, wanted to make a game version of his unpublished novel called Tale Fantasia. But there was a lot of drama and changes, so the game got pushed back a year, and they finally released it. Then Yoshiharu Gotanda left and formed Tri-Ace to make Star Ocean. And I feel, as a writer, I feel kind of bad because I kind of feel like his story was sort of taken from him. The content of the story is subject. From what I understand, the early stuff wasn't really that good, and so it needed a lot of work. And for that, I can kind of understand. Yoshiharu, for all we know, could have just be a typical, teenager elitist writer's no, my work is perfect. You're ruining my creative vision, my immersion. But it's really kind of unfortunate, I suppose, though, granted, you can kind of make a bit of connections with Star Ocean and Tales, I think. Heck, if you just look at Roddick and Claude from Star Ocean, they're basically Crest split into two different characters, in a way, especially from a design standpoint. And I think once you take a look at them, you'll kind of understand. But after, I think around Vesperia was when I decided to kind of get back into the series a little bit more and decide, you know what, I'm just going to re-get all of my save data. And so I finally decided just to sit down, work really hard. I made out this little plan. I would do a Rebirth or something. I did it in section 2. I would get to the halfway point of a game, and then I would go to another one. And I literally got back all the data. And this kind of thing has happened to me again recently. I had to redo my Radiant Mythology 2 save data because I accidentally overwrote it because I was used to Tales games starting to do the new game, do the post-game stuff where they let you continue where you left off even after you saved, whereas Radiant Mythology didn't do that, at the time at least. And then when my PS3 crapped out, I actually took the time immediately, as soon as I got the new PS3, to re-get everything, and I've gotten everything and then some because of all the new games that have come out, like Saint Seiya Brave Soldiers and whatnot. So this little adventure in the Tales series has led to a bunch of different growth periods for me. I've learned to just kind of accept things sometimes and try to fix them, as opposed to just worrying about how bad it is. And I've learned to appreciate other series and learned to appreciate the Tales series even more based on those other series that I look at, especially from a perspective of Star Ocean. Whenever I would play Star Ocean, I would always think about how much I liked Tales, and I just wanted to play Tales. So that's where that goes. But then another little falling point came around. This was around a little bit before Exilia, or a little bit after Exilia or something, because we had a bit of a time. I started to kind of get tired of the Tales here, and I felt like it was getting kind of stale because they were starting to use the same story tropes, and they were starting to the gameplay didn't really do much, with the exception of Graces. I feel like that was sort of kind of messed me up a little bit because I started to expect more stuff. And I was getting kind of bored, and I wasn't really looking forward to Exilia 2 that much. In fact, I almost went back to my old days where, the big Tales game was, overrated. But then I actually played Exilia 2, and once again, I was blown away. I would almost say that the feelings from Symphonia came back, but were multiplied, because there was more emotion, and I just felt like it was just a very polished game, which is what I really come to expect from the Tales series, just the big polish. And so I kind of came out of a Tales rut, and as I play Hearts R, and try to finish up other Tales games that I need to finish, I am more in a Tales mood, and I kind of just really like playing the Tales series. I'm more or less back, I think. With that said, I'm really looking forward to Tales of Zestiria now that I'm out of that Tales rut, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how the game's going to differ from the series. From what Hideo Baba has told us, this game is supposed to be a little different gameplay-wise. We've already seen some gameplay footage of them trying to kind of blend in the battle system with the world map and the whole general story thing with the whole serifs and whatnot. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this whole game plays out, and I'm actually really looking forward to it. Before Exilia 2, to be honest, I was sort of in an oh great, another Tales game kind of mood, even though since I love this series, I should be super excited about it. And now I've kind of come back to that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this game has in store for us. And I know Japan's going to be getting it in January, so we're going to be getting it probably in summer. But that'll be interesting. As I close this out, I feel like that, one, I've said everything that I can really think of, and I kind of like what the Tales series has given me. Like, it's really my favorite video game series, period, I think. And behind, like, Dragon Ball, it's probably my favorite. Dragon Ball and the Tales series are my two favorite things, like, period. Those are, like, definitely the two top things that I really like, and I'm going to continue to support both as much as I can. Heck, the Tales series gives me a lot of what I want, not even just with the giving me the perfect JRPG just tailored for me. Like I said, the polish, and of course there are some shonen elements as well, like with Luger's Chromatis, and as we've seen with Sore and other serifs, you can merge to make a super form, and that's very much like, going Super Saiyan or getting a gold cloth or even going Kaioken, and I really like seeing those shonen aspects of the Tales series. And heck, with the Mystic Arts too, it's like we get a lot of those anyway that have been in the series since the beginning. So yeah, I'll have to do a top 10 list of my favorite Mystic Arts, hint hint. I've even had a chance to make my own character in the Radiant Mythology games, so that's cool, and I really hope they continue that, because that's probably one of my favorite features of the Tales series, period. And of course, there's the good old fan service. Probably my favorite out of the fan service, at least for me, is the school uniforms for all the cute girl characters. That's kind of my thing, though between you and me, I think Zestiria's school uniform costumes for the girls are not very good. Alicia needs to fix her stuff. Anyway, the school uniforms I particularly like. I like Sharia's, Estelle's, Patty, Elise's I really like. School uniforms is like, that's my jam. And since the Tales series is giving me that, that's pretty rad. Hideo Baba really is a super nice guy. He just gives me everything that I want, except for the Eternity remake and the other stuff that he doesn't really let us have. He's not really good at. No, he's awesome. Hideo Baba, if you're listening to this, you're pretty rad, and I would give you a high five. There are some Tales characters that I feel like I can personally relate to. I feel like probably the strongest one, though, is definitely Lloyd, because I feel like Lloyd represents what I would consider my main qualities. Like, he's the really nice guy. He's not very smart, like I'm not necessarily super smart. I feel like I'm really smart about different things, but like just academically, I feel like I'm not entirely super smart. And, Lloyd is more or less an idealist, and I feel like I'm also an idealist. So I feel like Lloyd is probably the one character that I feel like I relate to the most. Of course, I relate to Reed as well, and I feel like Shing I kind of relate to as well because of his, having a big heart, being the super nice guy, and being a little naive. And I also feel like I've got my dark side, like with Judas, and of course with Jade as well, I guess. Just a little bit. Mainly Lloyd, Reed, and Shing. Those are the main ones. I don't think about anybody else. Those are the main ones. So yeah, that's my Tales video, History of Extravaganza. I'd like to have this up by Christmas time, which may or may not happen. So I'll just go ahead and say I hope you had a good Christmas. And if this goes up after the release date of Zisteria, then I hope you guys are enjoying that for those who import. For those of us who want to wait for the English version, since we're getting it, because they announced it literally the day after, I will be joining you guys soon. So, yeah. This is Ryan Burton, Flamzeron, Tasuke, Ryanian, whatever I like to call myself, signing out. Thanks for watching this very personal video, and sorry that it was super long, but, you know, I like the Tales series, and I like talking about things. So, until next time.